So Newcastle United have learned the full extent of Alexander Isak's groin issue. Obviously, he went off at Aston Villa last week in the 3-1 win. He signalled to come off, and that was a huge blow for Newcastle at the time. Yes, they responded by winning the game, but it meant he was unavailable for the Luton game. We did speak to Jason Tindall on Friday. He wasn't quite sure what the situation was with Isak. Said he might be close. They were going to take a look at him. But I think Jason Tindall, he was always thrown in at the deep end for that press conference. He was a willing participant in it, but I don't think he had all the information. And Eddie Howe, after the game, able to bring Newcastle up to speed a little bit more on Isak, saying that he's going to be missing for 2 games, potentially 2 games at least. We'll have to wait and see. But doesn't look like he's going to be playing against Nottingham Forest, which is a real shame because we remember he had such a great game there last season, scoring a couple of goals. And Newcastle really benefited from his, presence that night. Sadly, won't be involved this weekend at the City Ground, and looks like he's going to miss the Bournemouth game as well. So 2 huge blows for Eddie Howe, knowing that Isak will be missing for the next couple of games, and then we'll have to see after that. Newcastle have got Arsenal and Blackburn to finish off a hectic month, so that's going to be really interesting. And the positive for Eddie Howe is that Callum Wilson is back. So he came on against Luton. He didn't have his greatest game. I think he would be the first to admit that. But look, what he's looking for now is match sharpness. He hasn't had that. It's been stop-start for him. He's had groin problems. He's had hamstring issues. He hasn't actually scored since October in the Premier League, away at Wolves when he got a couple of goals. And for Callum, I think he just wants to get that sharpness back, and that takes time. I mean, he did score in the Carabao Cup, but again, it was in the middle of a kind of run of injuries for Newcastle. Alexander Isak also long periods this season, so really tough for Eddie Howe. And certainly tough for the 2 players, but at least Callum Wilson now is back. Nottingham Forest away this weekend. Probably going to have to start the game. Anthony Gordon also struggling with injuries. And that's what Eddie Howe said after the game on Saturday. Just when you get one player back, someone else is going to be in the treatment room. And, it's just been one of those seasons for Newcastle with injuries. And it's one they're going to have to get over. I mean, we were talking to Harvey Barnes after the game. And he was almost trying to make light of the fact that it's been busy in the treatment room, and he's been a player that's been in there for a long time. And thankfully he got a goal scoring return against Luton. Well taken goal. I mean, that's twice he's come off the bench for Newcastle now and scored, so that bodes well. I think Harvey Barnes has been frustrated, but he's got an opportunity now to show what he can do. And again, another forward, another dangerous player. Not quite a central striker, but he's certainly going to bring a goal threat to the team. He's going to add to that 2-goal tally. I'm pretty certain of it. I thought he was a great signing when he came from Leicester for £38 million. It's been a tough season for him. He started off in that Champions League game against Milan and then didn't play again in that competition. So very tough for him. I know that's the story for a lot of players this season. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how Newcastle do line up at the City Ground on Saturday night. I'm sure they'd love that game to be in a couple of days' time, but they've got the time to prepare. There was frustration, I think, in the dressing room on Saturday night after the Luton game. Just frustration that they allowed Luton to get into that winning position. And fortunately for Newcastle, it wasn't an unassailable lead for Luton, because Newcastle showed the fighting spirit. That's my big takeaway from that game. And I know there was a lot made about the defensive errors, or the whole shape of it didn't feel right. But for me, the big positive was the fact there was fighting spirit. Because if a team's not playing for a manager, then, they throw the white flag down. And I don't think Newcastle United did that on Saturday. I think they really pushed on and were determined to get a point at least. And, at 4-4, I thought there was only one team going to win it, to be totally honest. But Luton proved to be a really good side. I think Newcastle now must take it as a point gained because 4 points from 6 from Villa away and Luton at home. Could have been the other way around. 4 points from 6, still a decent haul of points, especially the way Newcastle have been playing before that. Remember, don't forget they lost 6 from 7 in the Premier League, so they're back on track. They need to get wins on the board. The other Premier League results weren't too kind to them over the weekend, so they're a little bit off the pace for Champions League. Still in with a real shout at Europa League and Europa Conference League, so plenty to play for, and hopefully you can get back to it at Nottingham Forest on Saturday night.